Welcome to the Eternal Bright Light channel. Inflation is a very common term in the world of finance. But everyone should know the basic concepts of inflation, as everyone wants to be in a better financial position in their life. So, let's take a tour to the world of finance and try to explore about inflation. Inflation refers to a sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. Put simply, it means that the purchasing power of money decreases over time. When inflation occurs, the same amount of money can buy fewer goods and services than before. But why does inflation occurs? What is the cause of inflation? Inflation is caused by a variety of factors. Increase in the money supply. One of the main causes of inflation is an increase in the money supply. When the central bank prints more money and makes it available to banks, it can lead to an increase in consumer spending and investment, which can drive up prices. Increase in demand. If there is a sudden increase in demand for goods and services, it can lead to inflation. If demand exceeds supply, businesses may raise prices to capitalize on the situation. Inflation expectations. If people expect prices to rise in the future, they may demand higher wages and prices, which can lead to a self-fulfilling cycle of inflation. Exchange rate fluctuations. If a country's currency depreciates relative to other currencies, it can lead to inflation. This is because it makes imports more expensive, which can push up prices. Government policies. Government policies, such as increasing taxes or tariffs, can increase the cost of goods and services and lead to inflation. It's important to note that inflation is often a complex and multifaceted issue, and can be caused by a combination of any of these factors. Now let's look at the various types of inflation. Inflation can occur in many ways, and there are several types of inflation. The most common types are demand pull inflation. This type of inflation occurs when the demand for goods and services exceeds the available supply. When there is too much money chasing too few goods, businesses can raise prices because they know consumers will pay more. Cost push inflation. This type of inflation occurs when the cost of producing goods and services increases, and businesses raise prices to maintain their profit margins. This can happen due to an increase in the cost of raw materials or labor. Built-in inflation. This type of inflation occurs when people expect prices to rise in the future, and they demand higher wages and prices to compensate. This leads to a cycle of wage increases and price increases, where inflation becomes built into the economy. Hyperinflation. This is an extreme form of inflation, where prices rise at a very high rate, often more than 50% per month. Hyperinflation occurs when there is a collapse in the value of the currency, and people lose confidence in it. Stagflation. This type of inflation occurs when the economy experiences both inflation and stagnation, low economic growth. This can happen when the supply of goods and services is limited, but prices continue to rise, leading to a situation where the economy is not growing, but prices are still increasing. Core inflation. This type of inflation is calculated by excluding volatile items, such as food and energy prices, from the Consumer Price Index, CPI. Core inflation is used to get a better understanding of the underlying inflation trend, as food and energy prices can be volatile and not always reflective of broader inflation trends. Understanding the different types of inflation can help individuals and policymakers develop appropriate policies to manage and control inflation. Now, let's understand how inflation can affect an economy. Inflation can have a number of effects on an economy and society. Some of the key effects are: reduced purchasing power. Inflation can reduce the purchasing power of money, as the same amount of money can buy fewer goods and services. This can have a significant impact on people who are on fixed incomes, such as retirees or those on welfare. Increased cost of living. As prices rise, it can become more expensive to maintain a certain standard of living. This can lead to reduced disposable income, and make it more difficult for people to meet their basic needs. Reduced savings. Inflation can also reduce the value of savings, as the same amount of money will be worth less in the future. This can make it more difficult for people to save for the future, such as for retirement or emergencies. Uncertainty. Inflation can create uncertainty in the economy, as people may be unsure about the future value of money and investments. This can lead to reduced investment and economic growth. Redistribution of wealth. Inflation can also lead to a redistribution of wealth, as some groups may be better able to cope with rising prices than others. For example, those who own assets that appreciate in value during inflation, such as real estate or stocks, may benefit, while those who do not may be worse off. Reduced international competitiveness. If inflation is higher in one country than in others, it can lead to a depreciation of the country's currency, which can make its exports more expensive and less competitive on the international market. Overall, inflation can have a range of effects on an economy and society, and can be a major challenge for policymakers to manage and control. There are several remedies for inflation that policymakers can implement to manage and control inflation. Some of the most common remedies include monetary policy. Central banks can use monetary policy to control the money supply and interest rates, which can help manage inflation. For example, if inflation is high, a central bank can increase interest rates to reduce borrowing and slow down the economy, which can help reduce inflation. Fiscal policy. Governments can use fiscal policy, such as adjusting tax rates or government spending, to manage inflation. For example, reducing government spending can help reduce the demand for goods and services, which can help control inflation. Supply-side policies. Governments can implement policies to increase the supply of goods and services, such as investing in infrastructure or reducing regulations, which can help reduce inflationary pressures. Wage and price controls. Governments can also implement wage and price controls, which limit the amount that businesses can charge for goods and services, and the amount that workers can be paid. However, these policies can be difficult to implement effectively, and can lead to unintended consequences, such as shortages or reduced investment. Exchange rate policy. Governments can also manage their exchange rate policies to control inflation. For example, a country can devalue its currency to make exports cheaper, which can increase demand for goods and services and help control inflation. Policymakers may need to implement a combination of these remedies to effectively manage and control inflation. The appropriate remedies will depend on the specific factors driving inflation in a particular economy. Inflation is a complex economic phenomenon, which can have both positive and negative effects on the economy and individuals. It's important to note that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to inflation. While some inflation can be beneficial, high and sustained inflation can be detrimental to economic growth and stability. Understanding the causes of inflation and how it affects the economy can help individuals and policymakers make informed decisions about financial planning and policy. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more interesting contents. If you like this video, then share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel. We will see you again soon. Goodbye and take care.